Inventory crisis. That's right, I said it, inventory crisis. Lately, I've been getting asked a question from families I'm helping, or just people in general. They've been asking me, how do I get my offer accepted? That's what I'll be answering in today's video. How to get your offer accepted in today's Southern California housing market. What's going on, everyone? My name is Brandon from Remax with the Barber Group. In today's video, I'll show you how to get your offer accepted in today's Southern California housing market. Before we dive into the details on how to get your offer accepted, let's get a better look at the statistics. It's important to understand two things heading into this video. One, demand, and the other, supply. Let's start with supply. Supply is inventory, month supply in real estate. For several months now, supply has been hovering near record lows. What does that mean? There are not enough homes for sale. It's no surprise with inventory this tight, many families across Southern California are struggling to get their offer accepted. Second, we must talk about the demand. The demand in this case are buyers. And what's fueling demand are low interest rates. Rates have been hovering right around 3%. They're a little north of 3% right now, the average 30-year fixed mortgage. When I bought my house, my rate was 4 3/4, and this was just about 2.5 years ago. This is really driving buyer demand. Now that we have that out of the way, supply and demand, let's talk about how to get your offer accepted. Really, it's as simple as the appraisal. Now, I'm not saying there aren't other terms you can focus on, but really in this Southern California housing market, your opportunity starts or ends with the appraisal. It's as easy as that.
I bet by now you're wondering, what is the appraisal? I thought you'd ask. Let's break it down right now.
The appraisal answers two very large questions. They are value and health and safety. For this video, we're solely gonna focus on the value part of it. Value in the sense, although you can write an offer, the bank will do an appraisal and will only lend up to the appraised amount, not the offer price, but the appraised amount. Knowing that the bank will only lend up to the appraised amount, not the offer price, now we can dive into some examples. There are a few ways to approach appraisal. You could, one, waive the appraisal completely, or two, waive the appraisal with some type of protection. For example, in scenario number one, let's say a family submits an offer for $100,000 and they waive the appraisal completely. The appraisal comes back in at $90,000. In this scenario, the appraisal is $90,000 and the offer price is $100,000. The difference between the two is $10,000, and the family waived the appraisal completely. They would be on the hook for the spread, the difference between the offer price, which is $100,000, and the appraisal price, which is $90,000. They would be on the hook for $10,000 since they waived the appraisal. Their deposit would be at risk in this scenario. Let's take a look at scenario two. The same family submits an offer for $100,000, but this time tells the seller they will only be willing to pay an additional $5,000 on top of the appraised amount. Again, in this scenario, the house appraises for $90,000. The offer price was $100,000 and the appraisal price was $90,000. But in this case, they told the seller they'd only be willing to pay an additional $5,000 on top of the appraised amount. In this scenario, the spread is $10,000, but because they built in a protection clause, that family is only on the hook for an additional $5,000. They have built in some type of protection. So in scenario one, the family has waived the appraisal completely. In scenario two, the family has told the seller they'd only be willing to pay an additional $5,000 extra on top of the appraised price. In scenario one, that family is on the hook for $10,000. If they don't have the $10,000, their deposit is at risk. However, in scenario two, they have defined their risk, they're only going to pay an additional $5,000. And in that case, as long as they can meet that $5,000 extra demand, well, their deposit is safe. To summarize, there are two ways of approaching the appraisal. One, you could waive it outright. Or two, you can build in some type of protection. The only scenario in which I would recommend waiving the appraisal completely is if the family is ready to meet the worst case financial scenario. In most circumstances, the families I'm helping cannot afford to waive the appraisal completely. And instead, they like to define their risk by building in a protection clause as stated in scenario 2. Either way you look at it, in today's housing market, you must be aggressive with the appraisal. Really, your opportunity lies in the appraisal. It starts or ends with the appraisal. To get your offer accepted, you must be aggressive. Most aggressive option is to waive the appraisal completely and be ready for that worst case financial outcome. And if this isn't for you, waiving the appraisal completely, well, consider waiving the appraisal and defining your risk with a protection clause. Now, let's say waiving the appraisal isn't for you because you don't have the money to pay extra. Well, there are two options left. First option, you can wait for inventory to normalize, and in that scenario, hopefully you don't need to waive the appraisal anymore and pay any extra out of pocket. Now, let's say you need a house now. Well, an option to consider is new construction. In new construction, you're meeting the new builder's price and you don't have to waive the appraisal. Like always, if you're ready to talk real estate, even if it's just a question, I'm always available. If you would have a suggestion on what you'd like me to talk about, let me know. Share your thoughts, drop them below. Take care. Hey you, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe.